How's it going, everybody? It's time for the Quasar Mega Guide. That's right, this is the last version of the Quasar trial, and so we need to have a good guide to walk you guys through this so you can get whatever your max goals and rewards are going to be. And there's a lot of different options for this trial, which is kind of cool. So let's talk about that. Starting with the difficulty. Whatever difficulty you're going to do, whether it be difficulty 8, difficulty 9, difficulty 10, it's going to depend on what your goals are. Now, if you just want the Quasar Red Stars, you need to score 1.77 million. If you want all the milestone points, you just need to score 2.4 million. And if you want to go for leaderboards, you got to score it all. Check which teams you have built. You definitely need to have your Vigilante build, and if you want to push for all the milestones, you're also going to need to have your Thunderbolts built. Those are the only two teams that you need to have built to max out the milestones, by the way, so that's kind of cool. I know a lot of people were worried about Accursed. There are ways you could use Accursed to get those max milestones and do a lower difficulty, and that's just going to have to be whatever path you choose to go down for this event. Choose your option at that point, right? What do you want? Do you just care about the Quasar Red Stars? Do you want those Gear 220 Mystics on the final milestone? Or do you even want to go for that super awesome Super Saiyan Quasar phase, which is definitely something that interests me, but I'm not sure I'll have time to go about it. But speaking of time, we have a lot of it. We do. This is a 20-day event, so do not panic if your Thunderbolts are not able to handle the Thunderbolt nodes. You have ample time to build them up. So don't be getting too mad about things just yet. Wait until there's like 3 days left in the event before you get mad, if you want to get mad. All right, let's head on over to the pack talk, because there are only a handful of harmful packs. Forge and Fire, turning Crucible rules on, will help your Curse team, but it will really hurt you when you start facing off against the Phoenix Force team, and they are on 2 nodes, including Node 12, which is the hardest node in this trial. Experimental Serum is going to be giving the enemies 30% health. That's going to be annoying. You can turn that one off as well. That is the second hardest. Vile Rally. The enemies will drop their debuffs when one of their allies is taken out. That's tough, but we do have a lot of sources of trauma, so it's not the end of the world, but I would consider that the third hardest. Rope-a-dope is going to give the enemy a bunch of buffs if they have a vulnerable on their turn. Kind of the rule of thumb here is that the enemies shouldn't be taking many turns, and if they do, you have a lot of buff flips on all of your characters, so we're not too worried about Rope-a-dope. Thrown Defenders is going to make the enemies do certain effects on you when they use either a basic, special, or ultimate. This really only plays into effect on Node 12, which is that tough node with Phoenix Force, so having Thrown Defenders and Forge of Fire on at the same time is a little annoying, but Thrown Defenders is, it's okay. And then we have Energy Absorption. Enemies will remove debuffs they have on themselves and heal for 10% per debuff, but once again, we have so much trauma that this doesn't really play much of an effect, so it's not that bad. I would consider that the easiest of the harmful packs. Let's talk about the milestone markers, so you can kind of set your journey based on this. If you only want 7 red stars on Quasar, you can do difficulty 10. Most packs turned on 8 nodes. This is what I started off with, actually. So if we head on over, you can see this is after 8 nodes. I had 1.9 million points. We only need 1.7 to get that 7 red star Quasar, and I was able to capture what I wanted. If you want all the milestones, you could do 11 nodes on difficulty 10 with most packs turned on. And we have another person from the YouTube who did that, D-Glaze. You can max out all milestones by doing 11 nodes on difficulty 10 for the Quasar trial. Only packs I didn't have turned on were the Crucible bonus and Experimental Serum. And yes, to his point, had I taken off Crucible bonus and the Experimental Serum, I still would have gotten the red stars on Quasar after 8 nodes. Now, there is a formula you can use to kind of charter your own journey, and it goes a little something like this. The expected score of your run divided by 16, because there are 16 nodes, and then you will have your milestone target, whether it be the 1.77 million or the 2.4 million, divided by the answer we got above. Let me just walk you through that real quick. We can do a little version of it. So if I'm doing difficulty 10, we'll make sure we can get our red stars, we're doing 8 nodes, I'll turn off Experimental Serum. I will turn off the Forge and Fire. I think these are the 2 hardest packs. And I'll head over to my calculator. All right. We're going to grab that score. I'm going to first move this off the expected score so I can see it. 3,580,320. We're going to divide that by 16 because there are 16 nodes total. And we now have 223,770. This gives me the amount of points I get per node. So let's now grab that 1,770,000, and I actually forget what that number was. I'm just going to divide it by 2,300 because that's what it was, and that's going to give me 7.9 nodes. 8 nodes, that's right. 8 nodes will give me what I need to get the Quasar 7 red stars on difficulty 10 with all the packs turned on except for Forge and Fire and the Crucible. And actually, we could take a couple more off because it's not 8, it's 7 point, right? So we could actually do it a little bit easier too if we wanted to, but I'm not concerned with that. All right, we're now going to get into the gameplay, and then we will talk about our final thoughts when it's all said and done. I hope you enjoy it. It will be a long video, so make sure you check out the timestamps to see whichever node is giving you the hardest time, and I'll see you all at node number 12. We're going to hang out there for a while, I'm guessing, yeah. Node number 1 is a very, very easy node. We're going to be using Vigilante and Quasar for the first 8 nodes, and with the ability regeneration on the Vigilante team and the Quasar via the Pact, we're not worried about running out of cooldowns. We're going to be using them as much as we can up until the last 5 remaining enemies, at which point we will stop using abilities to ensure the Vigilante team keeps all of their abilities heading into the next node. You could bypass this and just spam all your abilities if you use Electra instead of Punisher. This is 100% viable. I just prefer my Punisher because he's at gear tier 20 and he does a lot more AoE damage. So although the Quasar special does a much more meaningful job controlling the enemy team, we're going to be using the ultimate quite a bit because of the trauma. As we have the Vile Rally pack turned on, anytime we get a kill, if the enemies do not have trauma, they're going to lose all these debuffs. Now, if you want to use that special Quasar to get slow, defense down, and a whole bunch of other effects out, you can target the Havoc that should not kill any of those 4 characters, and then Silver Sable will follow it up with an ultimate. So you can kind of pick your kill order here. But I like to get rid of that Kang as soon as possible. I have had him reach his ultimate. It doesn't kill you, it just kind of makes things more annoying, and this would be the most efficient way to clear this node. Once the Lander comes out, we want to make sure we can get a trauma on her. Never forget that with this team, we have various sources of trauma. We have trauma from the Hit Monkey ultimate on your primary target, plus the enemy with the highest damage. Your Star Jammer enemies will have the highest damage for the most part during this entire trial. We have the ultimate from Silver Sable, who will put trauma on everybody, and then we have the Quasar ultimate that'll put trauma on primary plus adjacent. Still have 9 enemies left, so don't be afraid to keep using your Hit Monkey ultimate to get as much offense up and speed up as you can. I will also note that the Daredevil special does a tremendous amount of damage compared to the ultimate, so whenever I get the opportunity, if I just need to snipe a character out, that special from Daredevil is my go-to. Now you might notice here we have 2 characters on the right side and 1 on the left. So why am I going for the single character who doesn't have offense up compared to the other 2? And that's going to be a theme when it comes to this trial, is that the post-Ares stat characters will one-shot you and the pre-Ares stat characters will tickle you. They're more for mechanical headaches than for an actual danger. And that's going to be it for the node. You can see I start using my basics and we're ready for node 2. Node number 2, like node number 1, is not extremely mechanically interesting. You're going to be doing a lot of one-shots on the Goblin characters. Again, those post-Ares stat characters that are more for a structural nightmare as opposed to a threat. Now, one thing I will say that in this footage, my Quasar ultimate puts up a battlefield effect which does stop the enemy from regaining charges. That is going to come into effect on 2 of these nodes. That's not necessary. When we originally beat the first trial version and the second trial version, I did not have that Quasar ultimate awakened unlocked, and I was able to get through it because we're going to have various forms of safeguard to protect us from those goblin flips. But if you don't want to eat those goblin flips, you can go ahead and ult on top of the goblins whenever you see them, as that will remove their charges. Same thing with the Miss Marvel classics. So the good thing about this is, like we talked about in the opening, Quasar is stopping speed stat gain, but more importantly, at least in this mode, he is stopping speed bar gains as well. So by stopping speed bar, we are effectively just nuking these lizards. They're not getting the speed bar from Silver Sable, and as well as the Kahori is not getting her on-spawn speed bar. I just sort of spread the damage out as much as possible. I don't bother killing the characters that I stun because we have so many ways to increase the duration of stun from Hit Monkey. So I'm not too worried about her popping out. And as you see, Quasar does what Quasar does best, and he just is going to take everybody out of the equation. When we're playing with the Vigilante team, we can also strip charges off with the Silver Sable ultimate. So in the first 8 nodes, we have tons of ways to strip off charges. Now, it's important to note on these nodes who's going to be eating the secondary stun from Hitmonkey. We talked about how if there's a Starjammers, they're likely going to be the recipient of it. If not Starjammers, then you're probably going to be looking at Medusa, as she does have a really big attack stat. And you see here, not a very difficult node. We saved all our cooldowns heading into node number 3. And fortunately, node number 3 is where we're going to get our first taste of some meaningful strategy. Node number 3 is where we're going to be running into our first looks at endgame Thanos. There's going to be a few annoying characters in this trial. Endgame Thanos is certainly one of them, and the others are going to be the Phoenix Force team if we turn Crucible rules on. So when you see an endgame Thanos, we want to get an offense down on that character, followed by a trauma. Because if we take somebody out, the Vile Rally will take that offense down off. But more importantly, when we push the Thanos, he will remove his own offense down once he drops below 50% life, and he'll attack you. On this node, there's 2 Thanos at the same time. If you push them both, and they don't have offense down, you are very likely to die. My team that has diamonds dies. Now, I'm not sure if offense down is coded a little bit wonky in this game mode, but offense down doesn't reduce the damage these Thanos passives do by 50%. Feels more like it reduces the damage they do by 80%. So we're going to go ahead and control that whole left side. What I'm doing is I'm setting up the node so that I can get multiple kills fast. We need to get 5 kills to replenish Silver Sable's ultimate because she is one of my sources of trauma. So we have 2 different combos we can go with here. We can go with the Quasar does his special to put offense down. Silver Sable does her ultimate to give the trauma. That's what I'm going to do here. Or maybe not. Maybe I'm going to go set up that left side to take them out as well. The other combo we can do is offense down from the Daredevil special and the trauma from the Quasar ultimate. So that's what I'm going to do here. You could also do offense down from Daredevil special and the trauma from the Silver Sable ultimate. Regardless, though, we want the offense down. As you see, that Thanos absolutely demolished my Quasar. And if that wasn't a gear tier 20 Quasar, that would have been bad. So let's look at a different version of this fight where we do it properly. And you can see if you push both Thanos, you are going to have a very, very bad time. So we'll go back in and we're going to play this properly. Let's kind of fast forward it a little bit. There we go. So I have to do the special on the center because I do have Silver Sable putting the trauma on everybody. Lots of good damage comes out. I'm going to stun the Captain Sam here. It'll follow the stun up on the Lilandra, which is good. We like controlling these Starjammer allies. They do far too much damage. Trying to get 5 enemies as close to that as possible so that when I do my push, I can get that Silver Sable ultimate back up as soon as possible. There you go. That is 5 enemies taken out because there was a summon, so Silver Sable is ready. And here's going to be a situation where we're going to have both Thanos up at the same time. So we got our ultimate from Silver Sable that will put trauma on both of them. And now again, I have 2 sources of offense down. I have one from Quasar and I have one from Daredevil. Do not use your Hitmonkey attack onto these endgame Thanos, especially if you're a striker. It will push. If I were to target the Lander there, the follow-up stun would have been on the Howard the Duck. So there's one push you're going to notice here. I'm actually going to avoid hitting the Thanos because I don't want that push to happen until I have offense down on the other Thanos. Go out of your summon, immediately takes a turn because it gets a lot of speed bar. And then I'm going to target the Thanos because I want offense down. But if your Quasar is big enough and you have offense up, you're actually likely to one-shot these Thanos if they're hovering around 75 to 60% life. It's kind of the sweet spot. So that's going to be the push on Thanos. We're going to lose our buffs now, but we did enjoy the benefits of speed up as much as possible. That's why I didn't want to push with Punisher. I had speed up on some characters, and I wanted to build up some speed bar before really doing the push. Now with 3 enemies remaining, we want to be a little bit careful with our cooldowns. We see that Silver Sable is ready. And there we go. Node number 4 is not a free node by any means. It's not as easy as node 1 or 2, but not as hard as node number 3. We do have a dangerous oath that we're going to have to deal with, which we can stun with our Hitmonkey. Because node 3 is so hard, if you're not able to get all of your energy back, we will have opportunity to get more energy because there is a weak Hela on this node, and thus there's a weak Greg. And now every enemy we kill, Hitmonkey is going to give us energy. What I like to do here is I like to target the Hela and immediately take her out of the equation. This isn't extremely necessary, but she does give energy, and there's normally a Greg in her position. I think there's a 50% chance that Greg is going to spawn beside her. That gives me 2 energy, which normally will allow Hit Monkey. I guess there's 3 positions, so it's a 33% chance. That's going to give me 2 energy. Normally, if Hit Monkey didn't have his ultimate up to start this, he'll get it up from that. And yes, we can leave the Greg up, and we could just farm him for energy, because the Captain Britain with Crucible rules on will stop us from getting rewound. If we don't have Crucible rules on, we definitely want to take that Hela out as soon as possible. We'll target the Oath with the stun. We're going to be going for Night Stalkers with these stuns. That's also going to tag Captain Britain, and that's really, really good. So we're just spraying the damage out, and then we're going to have a bunch of new stat characters drop in as well. But we're going to have an old stat, Zuggernaut, so I'll use this opportunity to use a special, call the assistant, and get that target taken out as soon as possible. Silver Sable will have her ultimate back up here, as will Hit Monkey. So now we're able to give them all trauma, make sure they hold under their debuffs, and we can get a stun on this blade. Remember that when you target a character, if your Hit Monkey is a striker, you will double up that stun and turn it from a 1 stun into a 2 stun. So we've actually already gotten rid of most of the dangerous characters on the field. Once that Hell is gone, these zombie Ironmans are kind of fodder, which is nice. Their old stats prove to be their weakness for sure. We'll go for a quick kill here once again on the Juggernaut. And now we have another Oath, and we have another Hela. Now, Captain Britain was existent on this node beforehand, which means we will still not be getting rewound, or at least we should not be getting rewound every time we kill this Greg. We'll use this opportunity to keep that Greg alive a little bit while we deal with the Oath, because again, we want 5 enemies killed to make sure we get all of our energy going back. I see we have 5 enemies, so it's time to get down to business, and we'll take them out. Node number 5 is going to be a return to business as usual. We're just going to get as many traumas and debuffs out as possible while nuking entire waves to replenish our abilities, and then just keep rinse and repeating. There is a Nova on this node. We want to avoid him reaching his Nova for as much as possible. It's just going to be an annoyance, and it'll cost you a lot of efficiency, especially if you are hunting for leaderboard points. So again, we do have a couple ways to strip off his charges, but it is RNG because he does get a whack load of resistance for each charge. I believe it's 2,000 resistance for each charge. Quasar can still peel this off just because of his new stats and his insane focus when he has offense up. But even if you don't pull the charges off, you'll see the amount of damage Nova takes is going to be enough that he's actually going to eat up multiple of those charges to heal all the way back up. So he's lost all of his charges. We'll now strip all their buffs, put trauma on everybody, and we'll remove the rest of this wave. So we're just going for the new stat characters, making sure we're getting energy, hitting as many people as possible. Once this Omega Sentinel pops up, we want to take care of her because her splash damage or her retaliation damage can be very, very annoying. There will be another Nova, and if they do get their Nova Force off, you can remove the battlefield effect with Quasar Special. Now, this Nova does not have charges because I have my battlefield effect up. It doesn't matter if he does have charges. You guys saw how that first Nova lost all his charges immediately. It's the same story. So I'll deal with the Weaver here because I don't want her to get her charges up. Don't want her to make us miss a bunch, and because she's old stats, she gets absolutely obliterated, and we'll just start doing again some AoE with 4 enemies remaining. Want to be a little bit careful with how much of our abilities we use. We'll use the Punisher ultimate there, and that will be the last ability. Node number 6, we're going to be returning to the endgame Thanos world. Now, this node is not as difficult as node number 3 because we do have Quasar with the war rules turned on. He is basically nullifying null. So without getting his speed stat, we're going to be able to quickly take the null out as well as control all the enemy units. So what I like to do here is we're going to be relying on the combo where Quasar puts offense down and Silver Sable puts out the trauma. We can do this just by using Quasar Special immediately on the Gladiator as he's taunting, and then we can get the trauma from Silver Sable Ultimate. This may require a few resets as the endgame Thanos is prone to resist quite a few of these abilities if your Quasar is lower built. Once this is done, it's important to note that the enemy Medusa is going to have a higher damage stat than most of these Annihilators. In fact, all these Annihilators. So she will be the stun recipient if we had gone for the Gohori. Then it would have been Medusa, and it'll also be Miss Marvel Classic before it's going to be the Annihilators as well. So you don't have to worry about your Hit Monkey accidentally pushing one of these Thanos. Now we took out 5 enemies, which means we get all of our cooldowns back. We'll redo the trauma on that in-game Thanos, and we're going to make sure we get a stun on him. You'll see this is going to go for the Gohori again. If that Gohori was dead, it would have went for Medusa first. Quasar will get the offense down on the Thanos, and so we're not eating too much damage from his attack. Now with the enemies dying, we are replenishing our cooldowns as we go, so this is fantastic. And we just need one more to go, and then Silver Sable and Hit Monkey will have their ultimates ready once again. 5 enemies left, so we still have the green light to use their abilities. Start taking them out. And just the 2 Medusas are left, so we'll start holding our ultimate abilities on all the characters. So not a hard node, but again, you just want to make sure you're performing that combo of offense down trauma as well as possible. Node number 7 is where we are going to run into our opening Phoenix Force team, and we're going to see just how annoying and powerful they could be. Now, this is an easier version of the Phoenix Force team that we're going to see later. We don't have the Omega Red Phoenix Force jacked up too high with stats, and we have a team that you probably have larger than Thunderbolts or Curse in the form of Vigilante. So we're going to be able to take those retaliates the Omega Red Phoenix Force does a lot better. So what we like to do here is we like to go and nuke down the non-Phoenix taunt as fast as possible. In a perfect world, what we'll be able to do is strip the taunt off of Phoenix and put a stun on this Omega Red. These Omega Red Phoenix Force teams do not have the Phoenix Awakened ability, so if we stun the Omega Red, we can avoid that retaliation damage. Now, he will have the highest damage in all these nodes, so it's a good thing that Hit Monkey can get the extra stun. Unfortunately, we weren't able to take that Phoenix Force out before his turn happened, and he dropped the stun. But he did eat a full turn bar loss. So we leave the Phoenix alive here until we take out the Omega Red, because we don't want that extra damage. And now that he's gone, we can take out the Phoenix whenever we want. So there'll be another Phoenix Force team that's going to spawn. Luckily, they do send a Colossus away from you. We want to make sure we don't strip that taunt off Colossus, as I do not want my Quasar hitting the Phoenix. So I go for the special on the Phoenix with Punisher, and now my Quasar does not have to kill the Phoenix. Now, unfortunately, we're going to do the exact same thing we did last time. We're going to get a push here on the Phoenix. We only had 3 enemies left, but I also knew that we were going to get a clone. I can now stun the Omega Red. The Phoenix dies, no retaliate is going to happen in this case, so that is good. Now I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to beat this too fast. If Hit Monkey does not get another turn off, he's not going to be able to use his ultimate at the start of the next node being the hardest Vigilante node with the Odin built in, but we can work around that. I'll talk about the 2 different methods we can take on node number 8. Heading to node number 8, this is going to be the hardest vigilante node. We have a couple obstacles to overcome here. We have a pre-taunted Black Knight with a lot of charges. We have astral members, we have an oath, and most importantly, we have an Odin, who if he gets his battlefield effect up, will take your team to the cleaners. And we obviously don't want that, as we need Quasar to carry the entirety of this Scourge. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the charges off of Black Knight immediately. We're going to stun a couple of the members. We'll try and get a defense down on the Odin, but we're going to quickly find that Hitmonkey does not have his ultimate up. So this will basically be a showcase of how Scopely has bailed out maybe some more casual players by giving Quasar the assist and allowing players to earn his Awakened basic ability through one of the negative zones, as that is an absolutely devastating attack that is going to save my butt by not having energy. Now, if you don't have the Quasar Awakened ability, don't worry. We have another method that we're going to show after we just take the Odin out here if you don't have the right cooldowns up to get offense up on your Hitmonkey. So you see, let's start attacking the Hitmonkey as much as I can. The assist from Quasar comes in. Then a follow-up assist as well. So the Quasar is just absolutely carrying with those assists. And then Odin's going to go down. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a different look at this node where we're going to sub out the Punisher and we're going to bring in Electra. The power of Electra is, of course, that she is going to be giving us energy on spawn, so we're not worried about Hitmonkey not having his cooldowns up from the previous node. She's going to allow for the offense up, but it's more than that. She also does a tremendous amount of damage, and when she gets kills with her ultimate, she's going to perform another attack, giving you even more leeway to get Quasar assists, which is, again, devastating. So there's the defense down plus a Quasar assist. That was not needed. As you see, Electra here is going to be hitting for 32 million. He was instantly dead. Electra can one-shot him because the raid rules being active and having offense up. We then turn our attention to Shadow King, because if Shadow King does take a turn and he, for some reason, flips your defense up into defense down and then performs his, what I call, Shadow Clone Jutsu, he will annihilate one of your characters. This will be the last node we get to use Vigilante on, unfortunately, so don't be afraid to use all their cooldowns regardless of how many enemies remain. Just try and make sure Quasar has his abilities heading into the next section. We're still getting energy along the way, though, so it does not mean that you have to stop using Quasar abilities. Heading to node number 9, there is a moment of RNG you can hunt for to make the node much easier, though it isn't required if you have a big Thunderbolts team. Now, my Thunderbolts team is not the biggest. I do have diamonds on Songbird and on Taskmaster. Only Songbird is gear tier 20. Hyperion is 6 stars, but my Victoria Hand is actually only 4 stars, so she is the weak link on this team, and she is the character that I had to watch out for, make sure she wasn't dying all over the place. So the moment of RNG you can hunt for is if your Quasar resists the slow from Void Knight. If your Quasar resists the slow from Void Knight, you're able to put the ability block on Void Knight and avoid getting grouped together, which will allow you to avoid a lot of damage from the enemy. So as you hear, the Quasar did resist the slow, and away we go. Now I'm actually going to use the harder version of this fight where we do not resist, just in case your Quasar is not gear tier 20 and you're having a hard time getting him to resist, so that we show maybe the worst case scenario. Now that our Quasar was the recipient of the slow, we'll go ahead and continue with this match. It's important to note that you're not going to be able to control Quicksilver with the slow. He'll shrug it off. Normally that would make him gain speed bar, but because we have Quasar, he won't gain any speed bar. But he's still going to go pretty fast, and as he gains buffs, anytime an ally takes a turn, he can gain himself offense up, and if he uses his special, it can be devastating. So make sure, if you can't kill him in one shot, as I just did here, get an ability block on him. That's going to be the best way to control him. Whenever the Starjammers are on the field, we want to turn our attention to them. They are the hardest hitting characters on this field, though the Liberty team packs some pretty interesting mechanics because of the War Pack turned on. The Starjammers are a much bigger threat. It does help that they are all cosmic enemies, so you're going to be able to utilize that extra damage from the Quasar basic, even if you do not have the Awakened basic that was earned in the negative zone. As we're going through these Thunderbolt nodes, guys, one very, very important thing to understand is how we are getting energy. Your Hyperion will be getting energy. He will be stealing energy whenever he ults. He's going to be able to use that ultimate quite often. You're going to want to rely on that, as it's also going to make enemies use their basics on you, which is very helpful. Quasar will get energy whenever he is the character that takes down an enemy, and we're going to want to lean into that. We're going to want our Quasar to get as many of the kills as possible. Songbird, Taskmaster, Ghost, and Victoria Hand are reliant on the passive from Victoria Hand. That happens when an ally is attacked. She will give energy to random Thunderbolt allies, prioritizing characters that do not have full energy. So make sure that Quasar and Hyperion are being self-sufficient so that Songbird, Taskmaster, and Victoria Hand will get their cooldowns back, as they are very crucial cooldowns to your success. Node number 10 is going to be a little bit trickier than node number 9 was, just because we do have to deal with reflexive taunts from the lizards. And now if you're not overpowering this node, as I was not able to do when I had the health pack turned on, we did have to make sure we controlled the Super Skrull well, and were able to take him out with AoE attacks from a distance after activating his first passive. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the Quasar ultimate targeting the Craven that will strip the charges off of all the characters, and it would put trauma ability block if it didn't one-shot. Now again, when I had the health pack turned on, that Super Skrull didn't get one-shot. He did have his passive get activated, and we were able to take him out with long-range AoE attacks from Taskmaster and from Songbird. So Songbird is going to get a flip on everybody, and you'll quickly notice how impactful the Quasar assist is in taking out this lizard. Every time he does an assist, the lizard is actually losing 2 death proofs, so there's a little bit of RNG if you're doing more of a punch-up into this node as to how quickly you can get off the lizard. So this goblin is going to drop in. Now he does not have his charges up because, again, we have that battlefield effect up, but as you will see, we're going to be having safeguard on a lot of our characters, so he actually wouldn't be flipping any of our abilities anyway. He would just be doing a moderate amount of damage, not very much. We wouldn't even be getting the debuffs because we have disrupt, or rather immunity, on all our characters. So we have the one more lizard to get through. You can see how those triggered taunts are quite annoying. And then again, we're going to use the ultimate targeting as many characters as we can to get the trauma and ability block up on everybody. From there, we'll just keep running the gauntlet, taking characters out. We don't have to be as strict on abilities with the Thunderbolts, given the Pact, as we were with Vigilante, which is a little bit of an interesting dynamic, I gotta say. And that'll lead us to node number 11. Node number 11 is going to be quite annoying because we do have some Thanos endgame to worry about, and we have Illuminati to worry about as well. And because we have Crucible rules turned on, at least here, it's a little bit more difficult. If you do not have Crucible rules turned on, you'll have a much easier time both on this node and in particular the next node. So like any node where we have endgame Thanos, we want to make sure we get offense down on him, followed by a trauma before activating his passive. Otherwise, we could lose too many of our buffs. However, on this node in particular, we also want to get off of the Gladiator before we push the Thanos so that we can get an ability block on the Vigilante side of the first wave, which is the right side. Now, if we push the Thanos, it's not the end of the world, as we do get speed bar from getting hit, and that'll make our Victoria Hand go first. So there's the hit from Hank. That's going to give us speed bar. We'll still have the attack from Black Panther Shuri, but we have immunity, so we're not worried about any sort of debuffs. And you'll notice I did do the special from Quasar here. That's not necessary, as the Songbird ultimate does do trauma and offense down on its own, but putting the defense down on the Gladiator is why I was able to push him so quickly, allowing me to then get over to the Vigilante side, the right side, get a bunch of damage, steal a bunch of abilities, and more importantly, get this ability block on that entire group. So we're not worried about any sort of stuns. We're not worried about losing all our buffs. Hyperion also stopped that by doing his ultimate, but the extra protection is nice. And we'll take that in-game Thanos out, and there will be one more instance of Gladiator in-game Thanos we're going to have to deal with, but that's not so bad as it drops in after the fact, not before the fact. So you're going to see here, I'm going to avoid that endgame Thanos as much as possible. I do not want to give him defense down. I do not want to control him in any way. I want to give him the time to breathe, so I'm actually even going to go over to the leader, and I'll attack the leader instead of the Thanos. I'll then steal a bunch of energy, so if Thanos says get to go, he's not going to be hitting me with a stun. We start avoiding that in-game Thanos again. And now I can get an ability block trauma on the Thanos. I can get offense down on the Thanos. I go for the ability block trauma because I did think that Silver Surfer or the Hit Monkey would have died if I did the special. So we get that trauma up. A new Gladiator drops in, but Songbird got energy from all the kills, and she will be able to get that offense down on the endgame Thanos, and away we go. Now, just because he's prepped to get pushed and do his passive doing very little damage doesn't mean I want to push it right away. You can see he does have 2 turns of trauma and offense down. So I'll actually take this time, take out all the other enemies while I still have speed up on my Thunderbolt / Quasar team. And so it's just the Annihilators left over at the end. It's a much easier way to clean this up. Here, we've saw before that Quasar Special can one-shot the Thanos, and we get it done as well. This is kind of a gear tier 20 Quasar 7 red stars. Do make sure you went and collected your 7 red star Quasar reward before heading to Thunderbolts nodes, as it is an extreme help. And this will be it for node number 11. We are now heading to node number 12, which is inarguably the hardest node and definitely the hidden boss of the Quasar trials. Here we go into node number 12. This will be the hidden boss node of the mode. You can stop here. If you did difficulty 10 with most packs on up to this point, you'll see my score is already 2.6 million. That is enough to collect all the milestones, so I do not have to do this node. And this node is an absolute nightmare if we turn Crucible Rules on. There's a couple moments of RNG we hunt for, a couple that we can actually aim for, and we'll talk about that as we go through this. I do have Crucible Rules turned on. If you do not have Crucible Rules turned on, you're going to have a much different, much more fun experience than this. And it's important to note that I'm actually going to be bringing Ghost here instead of Taskmaster. Taskmaster's contribution to the team was not nearly as much as you would like, given that the War Rules were turned on, and the extra additional dodging from Ghost and turn meter rewinds from Ghost can play a huge part in success. Now, Ghost here is gear tier 19, level 105. So the first moment of RNG in this match is going to be who does Omega Red Phoenix Force put the opening taunt on. He does apply taunt to a random protector ally who does not have taunt. If he chooses Ares, that's really good for us. We're going to be able to turn meter rewind the Omega Red and deal with him a little bit later. That wasn't the case for me, unfortunately. Even if it was the case for me, unfortunately, with the certain pack turned on, Ares Ultimate does put a blind on our Songbird. Good RNG would be that that blind goes either on Ghost or on Victoria Hand. This is, again, remember, a 4 red star Victoria Hand. Songbird comes close to dead, but she's going to make it through. We'll then use our Hyperion ultimate. That's going to steal energy. And when the kill happens, we get a dodge, which is fantastic. Now, this right here is our first move of RNG. If our Songbird had died here, this would be a reset. But because we stole energy from the Omega Red Phoenix Force, he's going to be forced to attack the 3-piece clump. Not forced, rather, but he will choose to attack away from that Victoria Hand and Songbird, which is really nice for us. Now, Ares will come in and he will try and steal buffs, and he will steal buffs, but he will not remove yours because Ares removes Safeguard on spawn. He does not remove Safeguard if they already had it in when he jumps into the field. Our next mission is going to be to take out this Gambit before we start taking out more Phoenixes while Omega Red is on the field. The reason for that is that Gambit's ping will actually trigger before Omega Red Phoenix Force's ping. He would remove any sort of dodge our characters get from getting kills, and then Omega Red would one-shot them. So we're going to get him out here with a nice lucky Quasar assist. And now there's no more Gambit. And here is a moment of extreme luck. You might notice Omega Red Phoenix Force spawned in and there is no taunt on the field. Well, this is because we left Ares up with Disrupt. And when the Omega Red Phoenix Force tried to apply taunt to him, it was disrupted. Now, this is not a must-have happen to win, but it certainly does not hurt our chances. So what we're going to do now that we do not have to attack that Colossus is we'll put our attention onto the Omega Red Phoenix Force, and if we could take him out before we're forced to take out the Phoenix, that's going to be good for us. So I will make a mistake here, and I will actually move my attention over to the Colossus because I'm going to push Phoenix, which activates a taunt on the Colossus, which activates a taunt on the Phoenix. Now, this was a misplay. I should have just rewound over on the Omega Red, and then I would have been able to take out the Omega Red before taking out the Phoenix, but it's going to be okay. We will take an attack. Phoenix is actually going to revive the first Omega Red that comes in. Ares is going to try and steal our buffs, but because we had safeguard before he spawned in, it's okay. And now we're going to steal all of their energy once again from Hyperion. 2 of the attacks go to my Victoria Hand. Again, that is a 4 red star Victoria Hand, so thank God she survived. All the Phoenixes have now been dealt with, and our big goal is going to be to walk away from this node with Quasar alive. I will be able to beat this node with all my characters alive, but as long as Quasar is alive, he can be at 50% life. As long as he's alive, we'll be able to finish the rest of this trial no problem. Note that with the Phoenix gone, the enemy Omega Reds can gain trauma. Now, they can also gain that death debuff you just saw me apply to them, but they can gain trauma and ability block, and that will make sure that they do not one-shot your characters. If you let these Omega Reds use their abilities, they will one-shot your characters no matter how big they are. So it's all about control when we take out these Phoenixes and making sure our characters have dodge from the Pact. After node number 12, the trial gets significantly easier. Heading into the accursed Quasar node, I will actually suggest that you use Mordo over Satana. Satana simply doesn't get enough of her abilities back. The pacts that give energy to our teams is very helpful. However, the pact that gives the accursed energy only applies when they themselves get a kill. So they're not really going to be spamming their abilities, which is their biggest weakness, which is why they didn't perform well in the negative zone, and why they don't perform very well here either. Instead, this is just going to be more of the Quasar showcase, and Quasar is going to be carrying the damage, getting all the kills that he needs, and he will be spamming energy and thus spamming attacks. So it doesn't really matter who you kill here. They're going to do very little damage to you. You can go for the Carnage and the Venom. You can go for the Scream and the Gwenpool. You can go for the Firestar and the Bionic Man, Bionic Avenger. The only thing you want to make sure is that Quasar's ultimate is his only unavoidable ability. So make sure you're not wasting your attacks. So you see here, I am spamming my abilities. I'm spamming this because I was doing a efficiency run. We do not have to be spamming our abilities here. You could be using your basics with your accursed characters or their specials, trying to save a couple of their cooldowns. We will use accursed for the final 4 nodes, though you can switch to Fantastic Four with no problem. It really just is the Quasar show. So that's going to be it for node number 13. As you can see, there was no really interesting enemies to worry about here. Quasar will get all of his energy back as he goes, and we don't need to use all of our accursed abilities if we're not inclined to do so. Heading into node number 14, it's going to be a lot of the same story as node 13. The Liberty members do not all spawn in together and thus lose a lot of their synergy. The Invader members are as weak as you would think they are, and thus you have a really easy node. Again, you can kind of save your accursed abilities and just allow Quasar to take out the various clumps of enemies. They will kind of spawn left side, right side, left side, right side. There's no big groups of enemies here. You're basically taking on 4 enemies at a time. This node is a really strange Scourge node. It doesn't make sense to exist in this current state. There's also a final wave of enemies that is level 59, I guess, to help you get all your energy back. So we're going to go for the trauma ability block on the 2 Liberty members. We'll stop them from doing what they want to do. We could not land the ability block on Falcon. It's not the end of the world. We couldn't land the trauma on Patriot. That also wasn't so bad, as we're going to kill him first. Now we can go ahead and go for a stun on the Falcon. It was resisted, unfortunately, so we are going to have to eat a little bit of a turn meter rewind. But Quasar will do the rest of his job. Remember that you can make Juggernaut a healer to really increase the amount of heals your team is getting. I know if you have a budget built accursed team, having him as a healer and using that special whenever you get below 50% will full heal you. And then you can actually spam Juggernaut basics to get all of his energy back, as that is a way he regains energy. So you can see the equips from Quasar will be coming even more clutch here if you have a smaller curse. He will be able to one-shot a lot of these characters with just that assist once he has offense up. The Captain Sam and the War Machine, though they are rework characters, don't actually have rework stats on this node, which is kind of funny, but it is true. And these are the final enemies that are really just good to rebuild your energy. So if you've used some of your cursed, try and get some kills here so that you can use your ultimates and specials on the next nodes. And that'll move us into the Fantastic Four / Accursed nodes. Heading into node number 15, we can either use a Curse or Fantastic Four with Quasar on these nodes. I will say I'm going to be using a Curse for the purposes of this video because Sue Storm and Reed Richards MCU have not actually had their free-to-play release yet, so if you're trying to get this done early, a Curse can definitely get it done. It's a little bit more volatile. If you do have Fantastic Four, even at lower stars, even not at Gear Tier 20, they'll get through this content way easier, especially with a character like Thing getting his war buffs. Well, he does have stun and trauma, which is extremely helpful. And you also have other sources of trauma like Sue Storm. It just makes it a lot easier to control some of the enemies on these nodes, especially the Havocs. With the Accursed team, though, we can do what we've been doing for most of this trial and just rely on Quasar to shine bright and take out enemies very quickly, renew his energy, and rinse and repeat. So what I actually like to do here is like to go for the Man Thing. The Man Thing is extremely tanky. So we're going to go ahead and give him Trauma Ability Block. He resisted it. That's okay. These Star Jammer enemies are very weak, but they do hit quite hard, so we'll try and take them out as we can. Any sort of Quasar assists will make sure that they drop out. The next wave that's going to drop in will be a Star Jammer wave. It's actually unfortunate that Mordo's attack was needed to take out that Man Thing, as now we actually have a Havoc on the field, and that's a little scary. This is a misplay. I should have actually went over to the Havoc and done the special to put offense down on that Havoc, as he is going to be the first character to go, and his retaliates do an absolute massive amount of damage. Want to get trauma and offense down on him as fast as possible. Our sources of offense down are the Quasar special, the Mordo basic. Our sources of trauma, we have a few. We have the Quasar ultimate, and we have the Helverine ultimate as well, as long as there's an enemy that has an expose on the field. So you see here, this Havoc would have died because of how bad a job I had done at controlling this Havoc. You could also stun the Havoc, as you see I've done here, and turn your attention onto the Howard the Duck and the Landra. That would be another way to go about it. Just make sure you don't take out either Howard or the Landra right before Havoc does his turn, as his ultimate is definitely likely to kill you. The next wave is going to be some Night Stalkers. They're a little bit on the weaker side. Once again, Moon Knight, though a rework character, doesn't seem to have those rework stats being applied to him, or at least not all of them. And so he's going to fall easy. We want to make sure that we do get trauma on these guys, as if we give them slow or offense down, Blade would have flipped it. So I'm not worried about using all my big cooldowns on him. The pre-Ares stat characters do absolutely just melt, and so we'll take out the Howard, and that'll be it. And now we'll move on to the final node. I hope you've been having fun with the trial thus far. Node number 16 is going to be having a Mephisto with some Nightcrawlers on it that we do need to look out for. But once again, this is, of course, the Quasar showcase. So Quasar will stop any sort of speed stat shenanigans that the Mephisto would come in with. And we're not too worried about him because of that. And because he's not coming in on spawn, we don't even have to worry about his 127 speed stat, as we will have preloaded turn meter from the previous waves. For this first wave, we're going to want to make sure we take out the Black Knight as soon as possible. I like to use the ultimate on him to get ability block and trauma on all of these enemies, as well as it does massive damage, of course. Keep in mind, Nightcrawler will not get speed up if you have the Accursed. He will if you have the Earth Fantastic Four members. However, he will not give speed bar because Quasar is on the field. So he's not the same threat he normally is. He would also be forced to hit into Reed Richards' MCU, which is not hard for you. Or Thing, because Thing could get a taunt based on the room rules or the packs as well. So Juggernaut has a lot of energy going into the last two waves. Quasar is going to do his special because it'll do massive damage, call in an assist. This three-piece wave is used to get your characters in the turn order you want it to be. So if you're facing off for efficiency, you just nuke this wave and you just see who's going first in the next one. If you are punching up into this, maybe you want to slow play it and make sure your Quasar is taking his turn way before the Mephisto. Now, I actually just push it as quickly as possible. If you want to slow play this a little bit better, then you can have Quasar opening up into this Mephisto. If you get into my position, however, you probably want to slow play it and you want to wait till Wolverine can do a bunch of trauma and all of his debuffs, or until Quasar can do his trauma and his debuffs. Either way, we're going to get through node 16. It wasn't very difficult. Again, Fantastic Four actually handles these nodes even better. All right, let's talk about the trial. All right, guys, with that gameplay behind us, let's have some final thoughts on this event. And after running this event for 3 times now, my first thought is I need to stop. This is a 20-day event. If I just push the leaderboard now, I will burn out on this event. And lots of things are going to evolve over these 20 days. Franklin's going to be released. People are going to gain more stars on their Thunderbolts, their Accursed, and their Fantastic Four team, and maybe for the Vigilante team, right? And so they'll gain more red stars, and that's going to help them push their efficiency. And so if I push now, I'm just going to have to redo my run near the end. So I'm going to wait till about 3 or 4 days left in the event, and maybe I'll do a big push, and I'm going to have to analyze, does that really matter? Because the leaderboards, listen, I always thought I would really be down to do interesting content, even if there was no resource rewards or just cosmetic rewards. I still kind of feel that way, and I actually do like this cosmetic reward. I really do like what I'm dubbing the Super Saiyan Quasar portrait. But I think they need to up the ante a little bit as far as these cosmetics go. Frames and portraits, they're kind of cool, right? We don't really see them too much. I would much rather have skins in the game, fighting for skins. But I think the vast majority of the community, and maybe myself included, I'm starting to maybe realize this about myself. I want the rewards. I want some gear tier 20 on there. I want something meaningful on there that helps progress my account, that helps me be competitive, because you got to be super competitive here. And honestly, I don't know if it's possible, because you are going to have to hunt for so much RNG from the Quasar assist. It's going to play such a big portion in the leaderboard efficiency. And there's also, I have a 4-star Victoria hand, man. I don't know if I got to go for the leaderboards. Let me know if you guys are going to push the leaderboards. And then I actually wonder if this event is too easy or too hard. I think it's going to be different for certain players. They definitely tried to hit center mass and cater to as many people as possible. And I think they did a good enough job on that for sure. I think if you just want the red stars, you only have to have Vigilante built. That's cool. If you want all the milestones, it's Vigilante and Thunderbolts on difficulty 10. And that's cool too, because those are two raid teams. And if you are a newer player, I'm assuming you're 105, which is not everybody, obviously, right? That building up your Vigilante to 105, it might seem like an unnecessary build level, but it'll help you in war because you probably don't have new Avengers built or Underworld or whatever the case may be, right? And we are going to be using Thunderbolts in the next raid tier, so you might have to up them for that anyway, or you can up them for that so you can actually sim. It just doesn't feel like a bad use of resources. Now, if you're not level 105, you might have to do difficulty 9 and level up your Curse team and have 3 of those teams to level 100, gear tier 18, gear tier 19-ish, and maybe that would be annoying. I can understand people that are not level 105 that can't actually build their teams up that high. They could have a concern for sure, but hey, 20 days, maybe you'll actually get to level 105 by the end of it. You never know. It wasn't too hard. I think mechanically it's not too hard. I think as soon as you turn that Crucible buff off, the entire mode just dies, right? Like you're not having any more trouble with that Phoenix Force Node 12. It's just very easy, and you only turn that on if you care about the leaderboards. And I think it's good that the leaderboards have that little extra layer of aggressive combat. I think that's pretty cool. But one thing that stood out to me more in this trial, and all 3 versions of it, right, than any other trial we've had in the past, is this was just a Quasar showcase to me. Yeah, Vigilante carried a lot of their own weight there. That was pretty cool. But the Thunderbolts were really just there to get safeguard and dodges and put out debuffs so Quasar could continue to take everybody out. And they do a good job at doing that. Accursed, they're there. But really, it's just Quasar doing everything. They don't even do a good job putting out debuffs. They do not do a good job getting their abilities back up in order to spam. They just don't do a good job, right? The Venus 4 team, I haven't tried them yet. I will try them when I get Franklin unlocked. But I imagine it's going to be a lot of the same. The gear tier 27 Red Star Quasar is going to hard carry this. And that's not a bad thing because it shows how awesome Quasar is as a character. But I do kind of miss like the Age of Apocalypse Scourges where we had tags like a really broad tag, like Olive City. And it's like, I could use this character. I could do a burn attack here. Like, I kind of long for the days where if that Node 12 existed and say it was a Cosmic tag, I can go in there, maybe it's like Cosmic Hero. I can go in there with certain heroes, including Kestrel, take out the Phoenix, then I die. But then I come back in because it's a continuous combat. And that costs me on the efficiency side. But then it helps me on the frustration side. I get to make those kind of trade-offs. It just felt for like more interesting, engaging gameplay for me. But I guess this is no, it's not fine. I hope they go back. I hope we get more interesting packs that really kind of brain tease us like we used to have in the Age of Apocalypse ones. Again, we used to have specials cost 1 more, ultimates cost 2 more. Use your special, get ability blocked. Use your ultimate, get blind. If you have deflex, get stunned. And these sort of really devastating packs distinguish the leaderboards so much more. I mean, right now the leaderboards are literally just everybody doing a max run with difficulty 10 with everything equipped. And it's just this down across the board. And apparently the top run is like 1,000 more points than somebody in like the 200 range right now, which is crazy. I'm still ranked 41, which is kind of cool. I don't expect to stay there though, right? Because it's like point by point, it's going down to we need some distinguishing factors. Anyway. I'm not going to try and end this on a negative rant. I did have a lot of fun doing the trial. I have a lot of fun doing everything Marvel Strike Force related with you guys, and I hope you guys are having fun too. If you did have fun, make sure you leave a like, or if this helped you, even better, make sure you leave a like, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. But from now, stay happy, stay healthy, have yourselves a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.